There are different ways to set up the connection between FastAPI and Flet. And also, you don't necessarily need to connect to FastAPI directly. We're going to explore why we are using the HTTP method of communication between FastAPI and Flet. And we're going to intentionally remove this connection and use a direct connection. In this course, we've been using Flet as an interactive Python UI. You can run it alone, or you can mount it as a FastAPI application and then use FastAPI for the business services and the business logic. In this method, we're using HTTP integration, but we're going to look at a different way to do it, which is direct function calls between the UI and the backend. The current architecture, there's a clear boundary between FastAPI and Flet. There's also explicit data contracts, and this is the same method of communication used by HTMX, which we'll cover in the next course, React, and mobile apps. There's an alternative way to use FastAPI. That is with the direct function calls. In this case, everything runs in the same process. You're running everything in the same Python runtime, and there's shared memory between FastAPI and the Flet application. Using HTTP communication, you have the Flet UI, and this can be replaced with React, with Flutter, it could be a mobile app, it could be JavaScript, it could be HTMX. And there's a HTTP communication layer with JSON, which talks to the FastAPI application that then accesses the domain logic and database. For the direct Python call, same with you would call any other Python method, there's the Flet UI, and you set up a standard Python call to the function, which is on FastAPI, and then it'll connect to the domain logic and database. Primary difference here is that there's this HTTP JSON with FastAPI here, and in our new method, which we're going to explore, there's a direct call to the backend function in Python. To add direct calls, we're going to create a registry to collect callable backend functions. Then we'll add the registry decorator to each FastAPI route so it gets stored for direct use. Then we'll pass the registry to the Flet when mounting the app. So we're going to create a registry. This is the registry. So there's a class here, and there's the init function. And then one of the functions is called register. And we're going to register the function into this dictionary, and it'll be accessible from the Flet app. We're going to use the key, the function name as the key to access the dictionary of functions. And we have a getter here so that we can call the dictionary from the Flet app and not mess up the dictionary. You won't be able to mutate it, or you won't be able to change it. We just showed you the API registry.get. There's a main.py. So we have to import it and use it. So we import the API registry. And then here we get the API registry and we call it API functions. And we pass the API functions to the build the page. There's a method to build the main view. As we did before, we're going to start the Flet app with Flet_FastAPI FastAPI.app. And so there's this import statement here in line 3. Built into Flet is the FastAPI package, so fast.api. And we're imported as Flet underscore FastAPI using the async context manager, which is a Python standard library in context lib. We're using this technique so that the FastAPI endpoints can still be available. Otherwise, you wouldn't need to use FastAPI in your application. You could just build the in-process UI server stack all in your normal Flet application. But this technique does leave the API portion of it exposed for other clients like React or Flutter, some type of mobile, maybe Android. The same FastAPI will stay mounted and respond over HTTP. So these still exist. We're exposing it with this API registry, with this decorator that we created right here. So it creates that method. It puts it into the dictionary that we then provide to the main application. Because we are providing both HTTP and the direct call in process, you can use external clients. These direct calls that we are adding in are an addition, not a replacement. To use the function, we provide API functions to the UI builders. This is a handler for the direct button access. And this is the handler for the button, the HTTP button click. Put it up. I'm going to press Control click. I'm going to open up in the in-browser tab. So there's a button to get the data directly, and there's a button to get it over HTTP. There are some advantages to doing this, although I'm not recommending you follow this. This is an exercise and to show you what type of architecture to choose. And this one's probably more difficult, right? But the advantages are there's less boilerplate, there's no serialization, faster local call, and there's shared Python objects. So there's fewer layers. It's going to be faster and in some ways simpler. But there's several problems with this approach. So if you use the direct function as we are talking about, you do have advantages, right? It's simpler and it's faster, which are pretty big. However, you're tightly couple the UI and the backend. Because of that, there could be hidden execution boundaries. Testing itself becomes harder. There's no network failure model. You don't know what the API does. There's no API contract. And there's harder to replace the front end. The purpose of this lecture was to show that the architectural boundaries are choices. They're not laws. You can do whatever you want to do in your application. Your application will still work. The functionality will still be the same. It's accessing the exact same source. Both the direct and the HTTP endpoint here, they're both accessing the exact same function. There's different ways to get here. We're using HTTP because it's clearer. You know what it's doing. It's more scalable. And you can change it. I mean, you can change the UI. It's easier to change. So most things are HTTP first. Next course, we use FastAPI, SQL Alchemy, Tailwind, HTMX. And it's important to understand the boundary. that we are setting up between the backend and the front end. If you're really optimizing for performance, you should use the direct function. It is more powerful, but it's quite dangerous for the application architecture. You have to be more careful. The speed will come with additional risk. HTTP is slightly slower. You probably won't notice it, but it buys clarity, flexibility, and scale. This lecture and the code for the lecture will be put onto industry-python.thinkific.com. This is a 100% free course. There's no credit card. You can just enroll and sign up. You do need to create a free account. This course is designed not only to help you build projects for your resume, but also to have you be able to explain it during interviews.